Hi, how y'all doing? My name's Tyler. I'm the Vice President of the Winthrop College Republicans.
And I'm Leslie. I'm the Secretary of Affairs.
And with us today we have Miss Raye Felder, who represents my district in Fort Mill. So thank you for coming out and joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
Now, this is actually a relatively new district since it wasn't the first time there was an election here was 2012.
Correct.
So what made you initially decide to run for that seat?
Well, I think in 2010, when they did the census and we looked at the population, we knew Fort Mill definitely had tremendous growth. So we felt sure we were going to have a new seat in York County somewhere. So there was a group of us that very much wanted Fort Mill to have a voice again. So we did not want to see Fort Mill broken up into part District 48, part District 45.
Yeah.
You know, we wanted a Fort Mill voice. So we did lobby for that. We attended some meetings about the redistricting. We looked at the maps. Fort Mill and TK together were just too large for one district. So we had to have some division there. So Ralph Norman continued with TK, and then we took a big chunk of Fort Mill. My district comes across and takes in Riverwalk and the Galleria Mall. When it was all said and done, it was like, okay, we have a new district, District 26, right in the middle of 45 and 48, District 26. Now who's going to run? So I had never thought about running for politics. It was not on my radar, wasn't something, but I have a tremendous love for a community that supported me in a 30-year career. So at the end of the day, they knocked on my door and said, we really would like you to consider running. And I went home and I told my husband, I said, you know, why not? If not me, then who? So I made a few phone calls to some people that I thought would really represent our community well. But for various reasons, they could not at that time step up and run for office, because it does take a tremendous commitment. I mean, you're gone 6 months out of the year, 3 days a week. The rest of the year, you still have a lot of work to do and a lot of constituent services to do. So you have to have a job and a family situation that allows you that flexibility. So I filed, I ran, I was kicked off the ballot. That was the year of the petition candidate. So about 250 of us were removed from the ballot. So then the only way to be on the ballot was to get petitions signed, get enough signatures to put your name back on the ballot. So it was a very difficult first election. Thank goodness the other two were a little smoother.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, being a resident of Fort Mill, I'm just glad to have you representing us in Columbia. I just want to thank you for all that you do for us.
Well, thank you very much. We're glad to have you there now, too.
Yeah.
That was a great story, and I'd like to hear more about the petition stuff eventually. But what other issues going down to Columbia? What kind of issues are important to you in Fort Mill?
Well, I think as a state, I try to look at everything, not only what's best for Fort Mill, but what's best for our state to keep us all cohesively working together.
Right.
We have so much to be proud of in this state. When you turn on national news and you see what's happening around our country and around our world, you have to take a moment and say a little special prayer that we live where we do. We're a caring community. This state cares about each other. So I think looking at the new legislative session, you know, we're going to keep education on the forefront. We've got some issues there. We've got some funding disparities that we need to try to work around. Act 388 has really been detrimental to our fast-growing districts, districts where every day they're getting new students. That funding is not growing with their capacity needs. So we need to look at that. I think we're going to continue to have an infrastructure. No matter how we look at that, it's not only a matter of money, it's also a matter of managing that process correctly. But infrastructure has to be there. With the growth in our Fort Mill area, you know, I'm still go back to not only infrastructure with roads and bridges and sidewalks, but what about water and sewer and natural gas? Are we expanding those lines? Are we building that to handle all this new growth? You know, it takes a lot of natural gas to pump through to heat as many homes as we're seeing built in our area.
That's one thing you really don't think about. You know, the main thing you think of is like, oh, well, roads, but there's so much other things that go into it.
There's a lot more than just roads. You want to wake up in the morning and know that heater's going to work.
Yeah.
Especially mornings like this morning.
Oh, yeah. So I guess talking about like the legislative session, like what's one of your main, I guess, goals in terms of like legislation that you'd like to see passed?
See us get through this year?
Yep.
Well, this is the first year of a 2-year session, so that we have to. We do have some issues. We've got to work on some corrections to the state pension plan. So I think we'll see a focus on the pension plan and maybe vetting that a little more thoroughly and deciding what changes we can make. That situation, I know that yesterday, I believe fiscal, they voted to raise the contributions from state employees by like another 0.5%. That alone is not going to solve this. We're going to have to make some major changes there. So I think that's going to take up a lot of discussion in looking at that and trying to find a solution to that. I think another thing that will take up a lot of discussion is the education funding as well. So I do think it's going to be a very, very busy year with as much as we have going on. But I'm sure together, we're very fortunate in York County. We have a great delegation that we will work together and try to find a way to make it work.
What else could residents of Fort Mill see coming forth in this next session?
Well, I think Fort Mill's going to continue to see the growth.
Right.
I think that's, no matter what we do in Columbia, we are not going to be able to stop the growth that Fort Mill is going to see. I do think, though, that Fort Mill will be pleased with the fact that we are seriously looking at some type of tax reform.
Right.
Whether that's sales tax, income tax, a combination of the two, and even an infrastructure. You know, when we look at the user fee on gasoline, we're much lower than North Carolina.
Right.
We're much lower than Georgia. But yet in Fort Mill, for those of us that line up at the gas station, you got 4 North Carolina tags and then you're in line
exactly.
waiting. So perhaps we can put all of that together and make a comprehensive reform that is really good for the residents of our state.
So, and I really like that push you're making, because that's something I've never heard. And have you heard anything about like the natural gas stuff? Because I was asking you earlier about the urban sprawl of Charlotte creeping down into York County and Fort Mill especially, just because of, you know, how well y'all manage y'all schools. So, I mean, it's just really fascinating for me to hear you address that, because I've never heard it addressed. I've never even thought about it.
It's not
And,
just roads and
right, it's
sidewalks.
not.
It's everything that allows a house to be a home. You know, that structure can't be a home if you don't have heat, and you don't have water, and you don't have electricity, and you don't have telephone service. So all of those things you have to look at, especially when the growth is this rapid. I mean, this is major. You think last winter you had a gas line that supplied, let's say, 40 homes. Well, this winter it's going to supply 100 homes.
Right.
Yeah.
Can it handle the load?
And
So there's a lot.
Yeah,
there's a
no,
lot more than
That's
just roads.
Yeah, that's really, and it's really important.
And it's interesting also, like, seeing there's so much stuff going on. I mean, you have this recently, like, within the last year, a space, I know there's the Kingsley development area going on. This last year, I remember that was just trees. And now there's,
Yes.
like, you know, it's almost ready for business. So it's
Right.
like, I'm excited, you know, for the area to be there. I know there's also talks about, I think, a movie theater and a sports complex
Right.
near where the Walmart is. There's just so much stuff going on in Fort Mill that I know that, you know, even though I only moved here when I was in 3rd grade, the Walmart didn't exist when I was there.
Oh,
So
no.
Planet Fitness was a food line.
160 was a 2-lane road,
Yeah.
you know, and now, I mean, you used to ride out 160 back toward Fort Mill and you saw cows, you saw rolling hills. I mean, it was a 2-lane road. There were no red lights. Now it's a 4-lane road. The cows are all gone. Most of the open hills are now gone. You see a lot of dirt being turned over. You see a lot of rooftops coming out of the ground. We've got to be prepared to handle that.
So moving on to, I guess, a more personal segment of the interview, what is something about you that not many people know?
My pet turtle. I have a pet turtle, Stanley, that I've had for about 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's a dry land turtle. We found it in the garden. And my little granddaughter wanted to keep it so bad, her mother would not let her. And so, being the good Mimi I am, I said, don't worry, Mimi will take care of the turtle. Well, Mimi's still taking care of the turtle 15 years later.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome.
So do you keep it in, like, is there like a tank, or do you have it like?
No, it's a dry land
dry-
turtle, so it just kind of walks around, does its thing. I have a huge garden tub that spends most of his days in.
You gotta take it down to Columbia with you one day and show.
Yeah.
Show it around, yes.
It'd be like Joni Ernest when she brought the pig thing on the Senate. On the Senate floor.
Yeah, and we did have, for the Gamecocks, we actually had the Rooster there one year
Okay.
as well. So it has been done, and I believe Governor Sanford did a little skit with pigs one time too. So
Okay.
yeah, I think we've had animals on the State House floor.
Going on up. What is your message to young voters?
To be involved. It is a privilege to vote. It's not a right. It's a privilege. A lot of people have sacrificed immensely, including their lives, for us to have the privilege to vote. So for young people, I would encourage them to be involved, to be informed, to know what you're voting for, to listen to both sides, to go at the conversation with open ears and open minds and listen to both sides and try not to be judgmental. Every one of us has an opinion. Typically, they're all very different, but we at least need to be respectful of listening to the other side. And then I think the third thing I would encourage young voters to do, young people to do, is value that educational opportunity that you have. You have an opportunity in this country today to study anything and everything that is available to you. And you're young, your minds absorb that knowledge like a sponge. Take advantage of it, make the most of it, because you are tomorrow's leaders. You're our future, so we want you to be best prepared.
Well, just to I want to brag on Fort Mill real fast, because graduating from Fort Mill, I really feel like that gave me a lot of opportunities that I'm now taking advantage of. So that's why so many people are moving to our areas, is our education. That's why they'll continue to move here. So I just want to brag on Fort Mill again on that. So.
York County is a pocket of excellence when it comes to education. That has a lot to do with the parental involvement we have in our school districts. It has a lot to do with the community support. We do have great leadership in our school districts, but it goes back to the people. It does take a village to raise a child. And when you have a community that cares, then you have caring graduates that give back to their community, just like you're doing with this Young Republican Club.
And I'm aiming to become a teacher and hopefully come back to the Fort Mill School District. And part of the reason I decided to become a teacher was just because of the teachers, how great they are, how much care they put into their work. And it's just like you said, it takes a community to really put forth education. And I think that goes, the teaching, this goes back to how great the district is.
Exactly. And that is what we're charged with as legislators, is how do we duplicate that throughout the state? How do we fix the districts that don't have quality teachers? How do we help those districts that can't find teachers, that are outsourcing those teachers and bringing in teachers from other countries in order to fill those classrooms? Those are real problems facing our state that we have to find a way to address.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're confident that with you down in Columbia, we can get some of those issues fixed. Thank you for coming out and taking time out of your day to do this for us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.